Welcome, friends, to the Play Guitar Podcast. I am Lee, and I am here to help you become a guitar player that you always wanted to be. Wouldn't it be great if you could just make a chord? You could just create a chord whenever you wanted to, wherever you were on the fretboard. Not just standard bar chords, but chords in difficult places on the guitar, places you don't normally play. You've heard it before. I've heard it before. Right in the middle of a really cool solo, somebody plays something really cool and a few chords pop out. It sounds fantastic. You go, oh, that's perfect. How do you do that? That's something I can never do. They're just talented, and I'm obviously not talented, right? No, don't bring that. That's negative. No negativity here. You are my friend. We're gonna make this stuff happen. This is something that you can work towards, and you can get good results from learning these skills. You just have to understand how chords work and where they come from. It's a little bit of thinking involved. But today I'm going to introduce to you the 3 things that you can start to add to your practice routine, things to start learning, a little bit of music theory things that you can work on to take control of your chords. And then you can build them anywhere you'd like. What are those 3 things? Well, the number 1 thing is scales. And, that might not, sound counterintuitive, right? We're learning chords. I want to be able to build chords. Why would I need to know about scales? If you're one of those people who just really wants to strum chords and scales are kind of like, that doesn't sound fun to me. Well, I've said it a million times. Scales are where the chords come from. This is where they're created from. If you have those notes, those are the notes that you can choose from to create chords. I know what normally happens. I've been there. You get a book or a chord sheet, and you have your little box there, and it shows the strings going down and the frets going across. And a little number, 1, 2, 3. Those are your fingers. 1, 2, right? And you learn these chords. You play them, and they sound great. Usually that's where it ends. You don't start to think, hey, what are those notes in there? No, I don't want to know that. I just know this shape. When I play this shape, it works out. But knowing a little bit about what those notes are is very important. It's going to allow you to take control of these chords. This is the companion podcast to a video I put out this week. And what I did this week was I took a simple chord. I took an A chord. And I changed certain notes. 1 note here to make it minor, 1 note here to make it 2 notes to make it dominant, right? So a little diminished, a little augmented, all just taking this one simple shape and adjusting the notes here or there so you can get all the different sounds. And today I want you to start to think, okay, Lee showed me how to do that. And if you want to see the lesson, it's in the link here in the description. Lee, show me how to do that, but what's the thinking behind it? How could I do this on my own? How can I do it some other place other than just an A chord that he was doing today? Well, if you know the major scale, you know how to create a major scale, you're in good shape. The major scale is like the DNA of Western music that, has 12 tones. And we have these spaces in between them. Some of you who've researched this stuff, you hear something called whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. It's the formula for making a major scale. Whole step, half step, whole step, half step. That is one of the things we can boil everything down to. You can play something very, very complicated, but in some way it relates to the major scale. And chords are built from those scales. In the video, I wrote out the A major scale. I gave each letter a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we started to build chords from that. We started on the first one, and then we jumped the second, went to the third, jumped to the third, went to the fifth. 1, 3, 5. If your scale is an A, that's an A major chord. A, C sharp, and E. Simple as it gets. Well, what do I do to build a chord? Well, you get a scale, and then you start on a note and jump every other note, and you get a triad. You get a basic chord. It's very easy to do. Well, why does it work? Why do you jump a note every time? Well, something called intervals. This is the second thing that you should learn if you want to be able to master your chords. Understand what intervals are. Chords are built with intervals. What's an interval? It's a distance between a note. How far away two notes are from each other means something. It has a quality to it, has a sound. It's like different spices, right? So this one here, if I go from this note to this note, it sounds a certain way. And if I do it on the other one, it does another way, right? The distances between notes. These intervals, these distance between notes, when we jump every other note there, that's the distance of a third. So from the first note to the second note, that will be the distance of a second of some sort. It could be 2 frets, could be 1 fret. But when we jump that, we go the distance of some sort of a third. Could be a major third or a minor third, right? It's a little bit farther away distance than every other note. And chords are these intervals stacked on top of each other. So if we look at that or think about that A major scale written out, we have A, jump a note, C sharp, jump a note, E. There's really 3 ways that you can look at the intervals from this, right? You can look at the interval from A to C sharp. That's the interval of a major third. That's 2 whole steps. And then from C sharp to E. That's the interval of a minor third, a half step and a whole step. So we have 2 intervals there. We have a major third first and then minor third after that. But you could also think of the interval between the first note and the last note, the A and the E, right? That's the interval of a fifth. They call it a perfect fifth. It's a power chord, you know? A and E. So these distances, they have certain qualities to them, and certain chords need to have certain intervals to make the sounds that you would. This major chord has a major third and then a minor third. What if we reverse that? What if we had a minor third and then a major third? Well, that would be a minor chord. This like the middle note shifted one way. So it's the distance between the first note and the third note is shorter, which makes it longer between the distance of the third note and the fifth note. That part sometimes is difficult to wrap your head around, but this is where these come from. And I showed, well, we're going to mess with the intervals a little bit. I showed in the video, we had an A chord. I went for the triads. I went I lowered the third to A minor. I lowered that interval 1, went straight to A minor, right? The C sharp going to C. Then I did augmented. So I took the fifth and I raised it 1. So by increasing that interval from the first note to the last note, the first to the fifth, now it's a sharp 5, a little bit wider, hence the name augmented, right? Because it's a wider on the outsides. Now we have this sound that floats. There it is. A dreamy kind of sound. And there was one more. And so the other one was diminished. So that would be the first, the flat 3 like a minor, but then a flat 5, right? So we have 1, 3 to flat. So a diminished triad, right? Tense, narrow. And all of those came from starting with that major triad that I learned from my scale and then manipulating the notes a little bit, shortening the intervals, right? So we have these different intervals, and everything that we've been doing has been starting on the 1 chord, starting on an A chord. Well, you don't have to just build an A chord from if you have an A major scale. You can build a chord off of every note in the A major scale. So if we build an A chord, we start on A, and this is the 1 chord. Remember, I put numbers on there. So the 1, the 3, and the 5. Those are the notes in an A chord. Well, if I went to the next number, that would be 2. So in the key of A, that would be a B note. What if I built a chord on that note there? From the same notes, it's in the same family. It's an A major scale, but it's called the 2 chord now. How do I do that? I jump every other note from the 2. So there'll be 2. We're going to jump 3, go to the 4, right? Jump to 5, go to the 6, right? So that has a different set of intervals. That one is a minor. It has a half step and whole step first, and then a whole step and whole step second. Remember what I said, let's reverse them and see what happens. You get a minor chord. That comes directly from the scale. So that scale tells us when it's a 1 chord, it's a major triad, but when it's a 2 chord, it comes out minor. That's called a diatonic chord progression, right? The 1 going to the 2. And where do we get these diatonic chords? From the scale. And you hear a lot of songs. If they're standard songs, they don't deviate very much from normal things. They don't do crazy stuff. You'll get these 1, 2, 5, 1, or 1, 4, 5, or 1, 3, 4, 5, 1. All these come directly from the scale. Those are called diatonic chord progressions. To build chords anywhere that you want on the fretboard, you need to know what chord you want to build, right? What would I be playing now? What chord is that playing? Is it the 2 chord? Well, then it's a minor. Is it the 7 chord? Well, then it will be some sort of a diminished. Or if it's a chord built on the 7th degree of the scale and it's a 7th chord, you have like a minor 7 flat 5, like a half diminished sound, which was one of the chords that we built in the video. So, what chord do I build? Got to know those numbers. And not really difficult stuff to do with a little bit of knowledge. And those the 3 things is you need to know your major scales. And that's something that I would ask for you to start practicing. Write them down. Pick a random note and then write out the rest of the notes in the major scale. And then go to your guitar and see what happens. From there, start building a chord. Pick one of the notes in the scale and go every other note. Twice, that will give you 3 notes. That will be a triad. Or if you jump one more time, that'll be 1, 2, 3. That'll be 4 notes. Then you have a 7th chord directly from the scale. Something that you could start doing. You should start doing today. And if you are a Academy member, I'm going to be going into depth with this. I'm going to be, we have our get-togethers, our Q&As are going to be on Saturdays now at 5. We're trying that out for a while. And I'll be going through this in detail about how you can build a chord anywhere on the guitar. Well, let's talk about that. Let's go D, E minor, A to D. 1, E minor, which is a 2 minor, A, which is a 5 chord, back to a 1. Well, let's see here. Let's say I wanted that 5 chord to be dominant, and I want to play that somewhere else. Let's play it at the 5th fret. So I've got a D, and I want to play a dominant. Let's say I'm going to play my D at the 5th fret, an A-shaped D. And then I have an E minor here. Now, play that up at the 7th fret, and I want an A7 chord at the 5th fret, so it's close to these other. We have good voicing. It's close to these other chords, but I know how to make a regular A. I'm not sure how to make the A7. Well, I'm going to take that one of the 2 A's. Those are doubles. I'm going to lower one of them by 2 frets. Quickly, I made that chord, and back to the D. Let's say I wanted to make it even jazzier. Let's make it a D major 7 instead of just D major. I'm going to take my D chord, find one of the D's in there, and lower it 1 fret, so I get the major 7. Start to hear how drastically different this was. It started off, and then I went to D, up here at the 5th fret, to 7th fret E minor, to an A, back to a D. All at the 5th fret, and then I changed that A to an A dominant 7, and then the 1 chord I changed to a major 7. We'll do an E minor 7th, an A dominant 7, back to D major 7. just by turning those chords into seventh chords, still diatonic, they're still in the key, but just by taking one of the doubled root notes in each of the chords, and if it was major seventh, I lowered it one. If it was minor seventh, I lowered it two, and dominant seventh, I lowered one of those roots two to get a flat seven or a major seven. You can come up with all sorts of different sounds. A little bit more complex if you're using seventh chords than regular chords. But I did all of that at the fifth fret, where I just started from some open chords there, built them myself. And so I hope I sparked an interest in you. That's what this podcast is about. I hope that I can have you think about more things than just copying songs on Ultimate Guitar. I hope that you can see that it's not so difficult to really figure these things out. And I'm very happy to help you with that. One of the things I do have, a couple things here, is cleaning up your chords. I have a free guide to clear sounding chords, right? So this is totally free, and it tells you all the adjustments. I started with open position chords. And let's say that you have a B7 and you can never get that right. It's always clicking or buzzing or one of those things. This guide will help you. It will tell you all the adjustments to make to your thumb or your fingers, where to put them, all the exact same things that I would say to someone who, if I was sitting in the room with them, how to fix that chord there. It's all free for you over at playguitaracademy.com/chord guide there. But also, if you're interested in these things, you want to know more, I'm going to be doing these live, a little group lesson on Saturdays at 5 o'clock, my time, Eastern Daylight Time, in the Academy. So heading over to playguitaracademy.com, you could go try that out. Try it out for 2 weeks for $1. Go hang out with me on Saturday, and we'll go through these things, and we'll start talking about a whole bunch of different chords and how to build them. But the three things, if you're interested in this, to add to your practicing is building scales, learning about intervals, distances between notes, and learning about diatonic progression. What chord is it that you're trying to build? Is this the 4 chord? Is it the 1 chord? Because that's going to tell you what notes to choose and what you can do with it. If you're going to make it a seventh, what seventh to use. And then you can add some embellishments and other things to it as well, too. Okay. All right. Well, this was fun hanging out with you today. I've been under the weather for the past few weeks, and I'm feeling very good now. Very happy to be back with you again, and looking forward. Hey, check that video out I put out on YouTube. It's a very simple lesson, but it's a very profound one. And I'm going to call it That's a Wrap. Thanks for joining me today for the Play Guitar Podcast. Make sure to hit the button below to subscribe to the show. And if you have benefited from this podcast, please leave a favorable Apple Podcast review. It is the best way to make sure we get this very valuable content to more guitar players around the world. And if more help, structure, and results in your guitar playing, and you want to learn how to build chords, if that sounds good to you, head over to Play Guitar Academy and join me this Saturday. I look forward to seeing you. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.